What are the measurements? What's the weight? He sends back an email, $41,000 in debt. I said, Bill, that's not what I meant. But he's a funny guy.
He's always funny. Well, that brings me to, right now, Mark is doing thousands of doors, and he's working 14-hour days. And when we do doors, we talk to the people, and we ask them what the biggest issue is for them this year. And aside from jobs and economy, they all are picking just the government spending. And so how would you, as our congressman, actually help control government spending when you're elected in November?
Well, remember, when I go to door, whether it's businesses during the day or regular folk at night, I hate to say that 2 out of 10 people that I meet are out of work. Either they were not able to find work in the beginning, so they're not part of the statistic, or they've been out of work for so long that, again, they're not part of the statistic. And I hate to be, I'm a crying shoulder for these people. Just last week, a woman from Talcott came outside on the porch and cried on my shoulder that she's not able to find work after a year and a half. This is heartrending, and this is terrible. So what would I do down in Washington?
To help control government spending.
Yeah, what you have to do is you have to say no. You have to have the courage to say no to taxes. You have to say no to increasing the debt ceiling. You have to say no to all these entitlement programs. You have to be resolute and continue to say no because we can't afford it. Folks on the main streets of Connecticut don't write checks out of their checkbook because there's no money in their account. Why should Washington continue to write checks and simply sell bonds to the Chinese or the Japanese? They have to deal with the same rules and regulations and constraints that we regular folks deal with day in, day out. They have to.
Right. Now, Peter Schiff talks about that, too, and he's someone else we should mention has co-endorsed you.
Yes. Peter and I endorsed each other. We co-endorsed each other last week on Monday. I feel in many ways, in terms of our economic message, that we're blood brothers. When I listen to him talk, I hear myself talk. When he listens to me talk, he hears himself talk. There was one correction that he made when I talked in Harlington, because I said that we have to do this for our children and grandchildren. He said to me, Mark, I'd vote for you if I were in your district. One thing you made a mistake on, we have to do this now for us. There's no time to wait for our children and grandchildren. It's that serious. We have to put a stop to the spending, a stop to the craziness, the insanity in Washington right now.
Indeed. Would you describe yourself as a true conservative, Mark?
I don't know of anyone more conservative than I am.
I don't either.
No, I read this little book called The Constitution. As I said, to me this is a guiding principle. This is a MapQuest document, and I believe in it completely. The Founding Fathers, they knew what they were saying, they knew what they were writing. They were students of history. They understood the Roman Empire, they understood the Roman Republic, the Greek democracies, and they came up with this document which took all that into consideration. So yes, I am a true conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative, I'm a social conservative, and I make no excuses for that. And I say what I believe and I do what I say. Yeah. I don't wiggle. I don't change my opinion. I don't go against the grain based upon what might be a favorable election result. You know, I think in many ways Sam Callegeri showed himself to be a rhino, or worse, by his vote on the conveyance tax. 2 years ago, he was going to let it expire. Just 2 weeks ago, he extended it.
Right, in special session. He's a state senator from Waterbury. He's a Waterbury Republican. Right, and he, yes, he voted with the Democrats to keep the tax on the books. And in my opinion, you can't call yourself a fiscal conservative or a real Republican if you're voting to keep any tax on the books when it could have sunsetted otherwise.
Well, his excuse was that by not voting to extend it, there would be a hole blown in the budgets of the towns. But the tax was ending June 30th. The towns should not have relied upon income from this tax. If you have a lease on an apartment or on a store and that lease ends June 30th, you don't expect to have the income from a lease after the term. So if these towns relied upon this income, they did it at their own peril. At some point in time, we have to say no. Instead of feeding the beast, we have to starve the beast. We have too much taxes. This is the most highly taxed state in the Union. We have to say no. folks can't afford it anymore. They're leaving this state. We have to say no.
Right. And I think that, too, it shows that Mr. Caligiuri would flip-flop on issues, and I think we have enough of that down in D.C. already, and I just don't see how that would help our state and our constituents if we had the kind of congressman that you couldn't rely on his vote or to vote with your caucus.
Well, I mean, you could use the logic in D.C. that if the town's budgets were going to have a hole by not having this income, that the federal government would continue to have a hole forever.
Right.
Because we're 1.42 trillion in debt each year. You'd always add more income to fill that hole. At some point, you have to stop the spending and gain some truth to the budget.
I think this is where he shows what a career politician he is, because he knew that was catering to the municipal elected officials, and he was, you know, just kind of pre-primary, you know, puffing up their town budgets with that vote. So I think it was an orchestrated vote. He
got his support through the RTCs, through the mayors and the first selectmen in the towns.
And mostly the legislators, actually, downtown, yeah.
His payback was to say, I'll make it easier for you to do your budgets this year. I won't vote against it. But that's just an indication of how he'll vote in Washington as a career politician.
Right. And he started off, and he also flip-flopped in his race in general, because he started off in the U.S. Senate race, and when he was doing so poorly in that against Schiff and Simmons and McMahon, he switched and went to the congressional race. So
an indication of being a career politician. It wasn't bad enough to lose miserably in the Senate race. He had to slide on into the congressional race, because being a politician for him is very important.
Exactly. And then, now quickly, can we compare? So that's Mark's comparison to Sam Caligiuri, who's also running in the primary on August 10th. What about, how do you see your strength versus Justin Bernier's weaknesses?
Well, Justin's a career politician to be, or a wannabe career politician. He was a staffer for Jody Rell. He was a staffer for Rob Simmons. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a job. He's doing this full time. He wants to be a congressman. Now, when he started out, he knew where the bathroom was going to be.
That's what he used to say
in Congress, because he was catering to the inside track, to the RTCs. And all of a sudden, he's an outsider. Miracle. He's taken his horse to the outside, because it's not suitable for him to run against Sam directly as an insider. So now he's an outsider. I guess he forgot where the bathroom was.
He always says he has a strong economic background, but since he's someone who always worked for the government, and never really created jobs, I don't see how that could be other than his studies in college, I guess. Tell us about the Simon Foundation in about a minute or so, because you mentioned the dogs earlier in the show, and when Mark talks about the dogs, he's talking about the Simon.
Yeah, the Simon Foundation was started by my wife Linda and myself about 6-7 years ago. And what we do is we take in dogs that would otherwise be killed at kill shelters, municipal shelters. We bring them into our facility, and then we adopt them out to young couples and loving homes. So we're saving lives. Every day we save lives.
And you just opened a new kennel in Bloomfield, and so you created more jobs by opening the kennel in Bloomfield.
Well, we call it more an animal shelter. It's a bit more than a kennel. It's 37,000 square feet, state-of-the-art on 22 acres, and it was put up at a cost of $4.5 million. So certainly we created a lot of jobs by creating the Simon Foundation, and we're saving a lot of lives. And it really is a passion of mine to save these animals and to see the joy in the faces of these families who adopt these animals.
That is Mark's wonderful philanthropic side. And also, I want to point out that we also hand out this little book. A lot of people won't really tell you where they stand on an issue. Here's Mark. This is Where I Stand.